All right. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Ani. My name is France Gelina. I'm the MPP for Nickel Belt and the health critic for my party, the NDP. I am here today to talk about a new bill that I introduced yesterday, called 911 Everywhere in Ontario. The bill was brought forward because of failings of our 911 system that was brought to my attention. I have with me, just beside me, Mrs. Harriet Clooney, who will share her story of the failings of the 911 system for her family. Harriet.
My name is Harriet Clooney, and I am the daughter of Catherine Misson. 4.5 years ago, my mother, Catherine Misson, died a tragic death. It was tragic not because of the circumstances, as devastating as they were. It was tragic because the 911
Okay.
It was tragic because she called 911 in medical distress and no one responded. My mother had severe allergies, which caused reactions ranging from asthma to anaphylaxis. She had been born with these allergies, but in the 54 years of her life, she had always managed them well. She had never had to call 911. All that changed on September 1st, 2014, when she had a serious asthma attack and called 911 for help. She did everything right, but the system we all rely on in an emergency failed her that day. Help did not arrive until 2 days later, when it was far too late. Did not arrive until her neighbors noticed that something was amiss and called 911 themselves. The police found my mother deceased on the floor of her home office with the phone beside her and the cord pulled out of the wall. I was extremely close with my mother. She was my best friend. I had seen her the day before she died. We'd gone for dim sum, and she had dropped me off at work. When I got the call from the police 3 days later, my whole world shut down. And it took many months and years before we got the full story of what happened to my mother. It boiled down to this. From my mom's initial call, when she was in breathing distress and having difficulty making herself understood, there was a catastrophic series of errors that went all the way down the dispatch chain. Among those errors, her call was not dispatched for a full hour and a half, and it was dispatched to the police and not to the emergency medical services. And the officer was told that it was a technical problem with the phone line and did not attend the call. The failure resulting from these errors robbed our family of our trust in a system that we all assume will come to our aid no matter what happens. This failure also robbed my mother of her wish to donate her organs in order to help and heal others if she could not be saved. And it robbed me of the ability to get to her side as soon as possible. From the beginning, our family's goal was to find out why and how this could ever happen and how we could prevent it from happening to anybody else. A family friend with emergency response experience helped navigate us through the system to try to get information and investigations started. This part of the journey, through my grief, was the hardest and most frustrating, but I have the help of my family, and through our collective strength, we have continued to get here. My mother was an amazing woman, and she was always helping others. This bill will allow my mother's legacy of helping others to live on. Thank you.
Thank you, Harriet. I would now ask Brenda Misson to say a few words.
Thank you. I'm Catherine Misson's sister. We as a family have always maintained that what happened to Catherine was a failure of the system. But while we were met with sympathy from officials at all levels, we were continually thwarted in our efforts to have an official review of the 911 system as a whole. We were directed to only one aspect of the tragedy, namely the failure of one officer to attend the call and his subsequent disciplinary hearing. We were also denied access to reports about Catherine's death, even though we requested them through the Freedom of Information Act. It took years, for example, before we found out why there was such an unacceptable delay in the dispatch of her call. I want to say that we have never blamed any of the individuals involved in her call. We had, and we continue to have, nothing but the highest respect for what the 911 call takers, dispatchers, and first-line responders do every day on the job. People make mistakes. That's why systems put fail-safes in place, to account for human error. In Catherine's case, it emerged that there was no monitoring, no oversight, no supervision, all of which are crucial for people working in such high-stress environments. That is why we lobbied for an inquest, a no-blame process, to shine a light on the system and to recommend improvements. Unfortunately, our initial request to the regional coroner was denied, as was the request of the families involved in the Sudbury tragedy who were also involved in our inquest that we ultimately had. Sadly, it took two tragic events, several years, and several grieving families appealing to the chief coroner to reverse these decisions for there to be an inquest at all. The joint inquest took place last October. We are very thankful to the chief coroner for granting it on appeal and to the presiding coroner for conducting it so capably. We are also grateful to the jurors for their recommendations to create a much stronger system in Ontario. This bill of France Jalina, which is based closely on the jury recommendations, is the next logical step. We want to thank Ms. Jalina for introducing it and for understanding the serious implications of not implementing the jury's recommendations. This bill, passed into law, will ensure that those recommendations, which aren't binding, do not end up shelved somewhere until the next tragedy strikes. We strongly urge Ontario's members of provincial parliament to pass this bill into law, to make sure that what happened to my sister Catherine and to Michael, Matthew, and Stephanie in Sudbury doesn't happen to anyone else. My sister was a smart, witty, wise woman. She had a generous heart and a strong sense of fairness and justice. The creation of the 911 Everywhere in Ontario Act will mean that her death was not in vain. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. I would now like to ask Mark Train from the Ontario Professional Firefighters Association to share a few words.
Thank you. My name is Mark Train, and I'm here on behalf of the Ontario Professional Firefighters Association. Ontario's firefighters are standing in support of MPP Jalina's private member's bill. It carries with it improvements that will make a difference for many Ontarians when they find themselves in a time of need. I know this bill is precipitated by tragic events and loss of lives. The candid testimony and participation of victims, families, witnesses, first responders, agency experts, and coroner's juries are critical in shaping change and preventing similar tragedies. The verdicts rendered at several inquests have identified fundamental areas for improvement in emergency response by police, fire, ambulance, both individually and together as vitally important teams responding to life-threatening emergencies in rural and urban Ontario. Most Southern Ontarians will be amazed to learn that the universal 911 emergency phone number that we have used for almost 30 years still does not function in our entire province. People living in thousands of homes and people traveling thousands of kilometers of Ontario highways don't have access to 911. MPP Jalina's bill calls upon government to ensure 911 is in place for everyone, everywhere in Ontario, and it supports a better system and process through elements of training, supervision, staffing, and support. Ontario's firefighters support the call for a computer-aided dispatch information technology infrastructure that supports bidirectional real-time data sharing between agencies. This is included in the bill. Similar systems have been piloted in communities in Ontario for several years, known as EMS TIF or simultaneous notification. These systems serve nearly 2 million people 24/7. Ensuring that medical tiered response and simultaneous notification of agencies is in place is critical in eliminating unnecessary delays in the dispatch of emergency services. These systems are being sought by several municipalities in Ontario as well. A provincial standard of tiered response that addresses the immediate patient health needs, anticipated delay in arrival of emergency services, remoteness of the patient's location, patient entrapment, and patient location or access will standardize emergency service response to those in need. These tiered agencies include ambulances to treat and transport patients, and career or volunteer firefighters with in-depth local knowledge of geography and hazards for search and recovery of victims, and the knowledge of the tools to address the environmental impact of these accidents, etc. Implementation of simultaneous notification and standardized tiered response in Ontario will address coroner's inquest verdicts, can save response time, and improve interagency response and communications across the entire province. Before I close, there are two elements of this proposed legislation that address the health of survivors. From time to time, tragedies occur regardless of the efforts of Ontario's first responders. Proposed safeguards for the people will mandate that internal reviews be conducted in circumstances where there is concern regarding the 911 services provided. Through identifying matters of concern, the system becomes stronger, and survivors of tragedy can rest assured that the system will adapt and improve. Lastly, for my colleagues in first response, there is support of 911 call center personnel. In attending the inquest of several horrific events, I can say that tragedy does not end with the first victims and their immediate families. In many cases, 911 emergency service call takers, dispatchers, and other personnel suffer life-changing and often career-ending traumatic stress injuries from these events. Supporting their workplaces and identifying and addressing mental health support is a very welcoming and appropriate piece of this proposed legislation. The call to enhance the availability of 911 service and embrace technologies, training, and processes, and the people that support it will be the foundation of a stronger 911 emergency service for all of us. The Ontario Professional Firefighters Association is proud to speak in support of 911 Everywhere in Ontario Act. Thank you.
Thank you. So the bill has three parts. The first part is to make 911 available everywhere. The technology exists. Other provinces have moved this forward. It is time Ontario follows suit. The two other pieces are based directly on the 17 recommendations of the coroners that are directed at the province of Ontario. The first series of recommendations are changes to the 911 system. How do we help people who phone but are not able to speak? How do we help people in different circumstances where we have failed before? And the coroners has some good recommendations that are in the bill. The third part of the bill is to avoid what this family and many others have gone through, is to gain answers, to gain closure, to find out exactly what happened. Right now, it is really, really difficult to do this. What the bill does is it creates a positions of within the Ombudsman's office specifically to look at 911 failures. So if you have a loved one that has died, or if the 911 system has failed you, you could simply call the Ombudsman, and all of the power of the Ombudsman to mandates people to testify, to ask for documents, would be available to help family gain closure. We did the press conference ahead of the second reading because I want to invite anyone in Ontario who 911 has failed themselves, has failed their family, to contact me and to share your story with me so that when second reading comes, we expect second reading at the beginning of May, we can share your story and convince as many MPPs as possible to implement the recommendation of the coroners and vote in favor of the bill. Ça nous fait plaisir de répondre aux questions en anglais ou en français. Thank you.
Je voulais justement vous demander en quoi est-ce que le projet de loi changerait la situation des gens qui actuellement n'ont pas accès au service 911 ou un accès limité au service 911 à l'heure actuelle.
Donc, en ce moment, il y a des grandes parties de l'Ontario. Lorsque tu composes le 911, la réponse, c'est que ce numéro n'est pas en service. Tu dois savoir soit le numéro 1-800-310-1122, tu dois savoir comment, à quel numéro appeler, mais la plupart des gens ne le savent pas. Donc, les services sont là, c'est juste que tu ne sais pas quel numéro appeler pour avoir accès au service. La technologie existe. En anglais, on dit « call forward ». La technologie existe. C'est pas trop compliqué pour que ce soit dans une ligne à la maison ou sur un téléphone cellulaire, que le 911 soit automatiquement redirigé vers le numéro 1-800 sans que les gens aient à apprendre. Parce que le numéro 1-800 pour la police, c'est un. Pour les services ambulances, c'est un autre et ça varie d'une place à l'autre. Donc, c'est aussi simple que ça. Tu as un système où est-ce que si c'est une ligne téléphone, ton adresse dit à quel numéro le 911 sera transféré. Et si c'est au cellulaire, la tour cellulaire dit à quel numéro le 911 sera transféré. D'autres provinces l'ont fait. Il est grand temps que l'Ontario le fasse.
Est-ce que vous savez à peu près, and this may be a question for Mr. Martin, correct?
Train.
Train, sorry. Do you know, do you speak French, sorry?
No, I prefer English. I can understand, so thank you.
Français. Do we have an idea of how many Ontarians right now do not have direct access to 911 or do not get, if they dial 911, they get what you described?
Go ahead. En français ou en anglais? En français. Je te dirais, il y a 14 millions d'Ontariens qui n'ont pas accès aussitôt qu'ils se promènent dans une région où est-ce qu'ils n'ont pas accès. Parce que même si tu demeures dans une grande ville, tout va bien. Quand tu demeures, toutes les villes en Ontario ont le système 911. C'est lorsque tu es à l'extérieur d'une ville, là, tu ne l'as pas. Mais comme Ontariens, la plupart de nous se promènent entre deux villes au cours de notre vie. Puis, quand tu te promènes entre deux villes, tu n'auras plus accès au 911 et les gens ne le savent pas. Donc, en ce moment, c'est les gens qui demeurent à l'extérieur des villes qui ne l'ont pas. Mais en théorie, c'est tout le monde parce que lorsque tu es près de 80% des appels au 911 maintenant se fait par cellulaire. Lorsque tu te promènes en cellulaire puis que tu utilises ton cellulaire sur la route, il va y avoir des grandes espaces où est-ce que tu n'as plus le 911.
Mais géographiquement, ces espaces-là se retrouvent surtout dans le nord de l'Ontario, vous disiez.
Et en région rurale du sud de l'Ontario également. Oui.
Est-ce qu'on a une idée, bon, vous dites la technologie est là, mais quand même, est-ce qu'on a une idée du coût, combien ça coûterait pour faire en sorte que, pour que tous les changements que vous revendiquez s'appliquent?
Donc, si on parle, je vais commencer avec le 911, le call forward. Si on parle du 911 partout, les coûts sont minimes parce que c'est une technologie qui existe depuis longtemps. Mais ça ne veut pas dire que ceux qui te donnent le service téléphone ne voudront pas faire de l'argent là-dessus, mais en réalité, c'est un service qui est disponible depuis longtemps et qui ne coûte pas grand-chose. Ça va être des discussions à faire pour l'avoir à un prix très raisonnable pour avoir accès à une vieille technologie. Les autres changements, en ce moment, il y a plusieurs systèmes d'appel qui sont en train de changer leur système informatique. Donc, il y a des possibilités de changer en incorporant les recommandations du du coroner. On va acheter de la nouvelle technologie de toute façon et j'ai mis dans le projet de loi jusqu'à 2024 pour donner le temps à tout le monde qui devront changer leur système informatique de mettre le nouveau système en place, incluant les recommandations du coroner.
Do you speak French by any chance?
Tu veux-tu tu n'as pas besoin qu'il répète en anglais la même chose? Non? OK. Merci beaucoup. Thank you for coming.